stars burned quietly outside the window, endless points of light scattered against the black sea of space. Elias Ward stood at the edge of the viewing deck, his reflection caught in the crystal walls of the alien flagship. His suit still bore the folds of Earth's tailoring, neat but simple, out of place among the polished armor and shimmering fabrics of the aliens who moved with practiced grace around him. He was a man alone in a hall of giants. The Zarathi flagship was alive in every sense of the word. Its walls pulsed faintly with blue veins of energy like blood moving beneath skin. The air carried a faint hum, almost like a heartbeat. Elias had never stepped inside a ship so strange. Humanity's vessels were sharp, metallic, built for efficiency. This ship seemed carved from a living star, grown instead of forged. He felt small in its corridors, as if the ship itself was watching him. The meeting with the Zarathi Council had been tense. Hours of speeches, guarded stares, and words wrapped in layers of ceremony. Elias had gone as Earth's diplomat, chosen not for his strength but for his ability to listen, adapt, and survive the storm of alien politics. Humanity had only recently been noticed by the galactic powers. To most, Earth was a young race, bold but fragile. He was here to prove otherwise. The negotiations ended without decision. The council had promised him an answer tomorrow. For tonight he was told he must rest in the guest chamber assigned to him, but Elias knew the Zarathi well enough by now to feel the weight in their words. Something unspoken hung in the air when they dismissed him. The way they looked at him, the whispers in their own language. Something was about to happen. He waited in his chamber now, silent, his hands clasped behind his back. The room was wide, with walls shaped like flowing stone, smooth and curved. Strange symbols glowed faintly across the ceiling. A low table held fruit-like offerings, alien food that shimmered faintly as if alive. Elias ignored it. His mind was on Earth, on the billions who depended on him to secure peace. The door slid open without sound. Elias turned sharply. She stepped into the room. The first thing he noticed was her height, taller than him by at least a head. Her presence filled the chamber like a storm entering still air. She wore a long robe of woven light, each thread glowing faintly with energy. Her eyes, golden and sharp, seemed to pierce through him. She did not walk so much as glide, each step carrying power and certainty. Without a word, she reached to her shoulder, unfastened the clasp of her robe, and let it fall aside. Elias stiffened, confusion striking him like a sudden chill. Beneath the robe, her body was covered in intricate markings, glowing patterns that ran across her skin like rivers of fire. It was not a gesture of weakness or intimacy. It was a display of something ancient, something sacred. She smiled, calm, assured, a smile not of warmth but of claim. "You're mine tonight," she said. The words struck Elias like a blade. He felt the weight in them, the power. This was not personal. This was ritual. The Zarathi did nothing without meaning. His voice caught in his throat. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming, her gaze never breaking from his. "I am Commander Sarathis of the Zarathi. By the Council's will and by my own choice I bind you. From this night forward you are mine to claim in battle, mine to defend, mine to stand beside. Refuse and your people stand dishonored. Accept and you walk into eternity as one of us." Elias's pulse quickened. He understood at once this was not seduction. This was alliance forged not with words but with fire. The Zarathi had chosen him for something far greater than diplomacy. A ritual of bonding, a warrior's oath. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Humanity had never been offered such a path. The Zarathi were a proud warrior race. For one of them to claim a human, it was unthinkable. "Why me?" Elias asked at last, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. Her golden eyes gleamed. "Because you endured where others broke. You spoke when others fell silent. You stood when others bent. The Council sees in you a chance. I see in you a fire. That fire is mine to claim, or to burn out." The markings on her body pulsed brighter as if responding to her words. Elias felt the weight of Earth on his shoulders. Billions of lives, billions of voices, all depending on him to choose wisely. To refuse would risk humanity's place among the stars. To accept would mean stepping into a role he did not understand, a bond that might cost him his life. He drew a slow breath. "If I accept, what happens?" Her smile widened slightly, though her eyes remained sharp. "Then you undergo the binding. Our spirits will be linked by energy. You will share in my strength and I in yours. But be warned, human. The binding has never been performed on your kind. It may break you, or it may prove that your people are more than children of a small world. Elias's chest tightened. A test, that's what this was. A test not just of him, but of all humanity. He closed his eyes for a moment. He thought of Earth, the blue oceans, the green fields, the cities alive with noise and hope. He thought of the generations who dreamed of reaching the stars, of proving humanity's worth among alien empires. When he opened his eyes again, he met her gaze without fear. Then I accept. For the first time her expression shifted, approval sharp and clear. She raised her hand and the markings along her arm flared like fire. She pressed her palm against his chest. The chamber darkened. The walls pulsed. The hum of the ship grew louder, as if the vessel itself bore witness to the ritual. Elias gasped as heat surged through him, burning yet cold, light and shadow both at once. He felt something enter him, not flesh, not touch, but energy, ancient and alien, wrapping around his very soul. His body shook, his vision blurred. He stumbled, nearly falling, but Sarathas's hand held him steady like iron. Stand. Human, she commanded, her voice both near and far, echoing in his mind. He forced his knees to lock, his spine to straighten. Every muscle screamed, every nerve burned, but he stood. The markings spread. For a brief instant, his skin glowed with patterns mirroring hers, faint but present. His heart thundered like a drum. His breath came ragged, but he did not fall. At last, the light faded. The hum quieted. The chamber returned to silence. Elias staggered back, chest heaving, sweat running down his brow. But he was alive. Changed, but alive. Sarathas lowered her hand, studying him with those golden eyes. For the first time, her smile softened only slightly. You did not break. Elias forced a small, tired smile. Humanity doesn't break easily. She inclined her head, a gesture of respect. Then from this night forward, Elias Ward, you are bound to me, and through me to the Zerathi. You are ours as we are yours. Let the galaxy see and remember. Her words rang like iron in the still air. Elias stood tall despite the weight in his limbs. He felt the energy still inside him, humming faintly like a second heartbeat. He was changed. Marked. Chosen. And in that moment, for the first time since humanity had reached the stars, he understood. They were no longer spectators. They were no longer guests. Humanity had stepped onto the stage of galactic destiny, and he was its first champion. The silence of the chamber lingered long after the ritual ended. Elias Ward stood motionless, his chest rising and falling as if every breath had been dragged from the depths of his soul. The glow of the markings on his skin faded slowly, like embers cooling after a great fire. He pressed a trembling hand against his chest, feeling the faint hum of something alive within him. Commander Sarathas did not move. Her golden eyes stayed fixed on him, sharp and unyielding, as though she were weighing him against the stars themselves. She had seen warriors fall during the ritual. She had seen strong Zerathi reduced to ash when their spirit failed to bond. Yet this human, fragile by their standards, soft in body compared to her people, stood alive before her. You endure, she said at last, her voice low but steady. Elias tried to speak, but his throat was dry. He swallowed and forced out the words, I'm still standing. A faint smile touched her lips, brief as a flicker of flame. Then the council chose well. She stepped closer, her movements silent yet commanding. With a swift gesture, she lifted her fallen robe from the floor and draped it back across her shoulders. The glowing markings dimmed, hidden beneath the fabric, though Elias could still sense their presence. Like lightning waiting inside storm clouds. You must rest, she said. The bond is not complete in one night. It grows like root and branch. You will feel its pull in your blood, in your thoughts. Fight against it and it will destroy you. Accept it and it will shape you. Elias gave a tired nod. His body felt heavy yet strangely strong. Every nerve hummed with a faint vibration. It was as if his senses had widened. He could hear the faint rhythm of the ship's energy pulse in the walls, taste the mineral tang of the air, even sense the steady power radiating from Sarathas herself. What happens next? He asked. Her golden eyes flickered. Training. Survival. You are bound to me now. You will fight at my side when war comes. The council expects much of you. War? Elias echoed. So soon? Sarathas's expression hardened. The galaxy does not wait for young races to find their footing. The veiled dominion gathers strength at the edge of known space. Machines without soul, without mercy. They spread like fire across dry fields. We stand in their path. And now, so do you. Elias felt his stomach twist. He had come as a diplomat, a negotiator of peace. But now he was being forged into something else, a warrior, claimed in ritual and bound to an alien commander. He lowered himself onto the nearest seat, his legs weak beneath him. I didn't come here to fight a war, he admitted quietly. Sarathis tilted her head. No one does. Yet war comes for all, whether they seek it or not. Better to face it standing. Her words carried no cruelty, only truth spoken with the weight of experience. Elias met her gaze and saw no mockery there. Only expectation. The same expectation he had felt in the eyes of the Zarathi Council. He drew a slow breath. If this was his path, he would walk it. Not just for himself, but for Earth. The following days blurred into a storm of struggle. Elias awoke each morning to the sound of a low chime resonating through his chamber. The Zarathi ship ran on cycles not unlike day and night, though the stars outside never changed. Sarathis came often, sometimes in silence, sometimes with questions that tested his thoughts. She spoke little of herself, but much of the Zarathi way. Honor, strength, loyalty, and the eternal fire of the bond. Training began in the vast halls beneath the flagship's core. The floor was etched with ancient markings, circles upon circles, symbols of trials carried out for generations. Zarathi warriors trained there, their bodies moving with deadly precision. Elias walked among them, smaller, slower, uncertain. Their gazes followed him. Some curious, some skeptical, some openly dismissive. Sarathis stood at his side, unshaken by their stares. They see a human, she told him quietly. A race untested in the fires of the galaxy. They see weakness. Show them something else, Elias tried. The first day nearly broke him. The Zarathi blades were long, heavy, humming with energy. His arms ached as he struggled to hold them steady. Sparring left him bruised, gasping for air, sweat pouring down his back. The warriors struck fast, testing his defenses, forcing him to the ground again and again. But each time he fell, he rose again. His body screamed, but he did not yield. He remembered Sarathis's words. Fight against it, and it will destroy you. Accept it, and it will shape you. Slowly, he stopped fighting against the energy within him. He let it flow. He felt the bond guide his movements, small hints, flashes of instinct not his own. His strikes grew sharper, his steps quicker. By the fifth day, when a Zarathi warrior charged him with a roar, Elias sidestepped with sudden speed and disarmed his opponent with a twist. The watching crowd fell silent. Sarathis's golden eyes glimmered. The bond strengthens. Elias's chest heaved with exhaustion, but inside him a spark of pride burned. He was proving himself, not just as a man, but as a human. At night, the bond showed him visions. When he closed his eyes, he felt Sarathis's presence like a distant flame. Sometimes he saw glimpses, battlefields of her past, skies lit by war, faces of warriors long gone. Sometimes he felt emotions not his own, the weight of command, the grief of loss, the pride of victory. He woke from these visions with his heart racing, his mind heavy with images he did not understand. Yet each vision left him stronger, more attuned to the bond. He began to sense Sarathis even when awake, a faint awareness at the edge of his thoughts. It unsettled him at first. But slowly he realized it was not control, it was connection, a thread of trust that could not be broken. One evening after training, Elias sat on the edge of the chamber floor, his arms sore, his body bruised. The other warriors had left, their murmurs still echoing faintly in the distance. Sarathis stood nearby, silent as always, watching him. You never tire, Elias said, forcing a wry smile. Do you ever rest? Her lips curved faintly. Rest is for those without duty. A commander does not sleep easily. He looked up at her, studying the markings that glowed faintly on her skin beneath her robe. I see your memories sometimes. Through the bond. The battles you fought. The warriors you lost. Her gaze sharpened. The bond runs deep. Deeper than even I expected. It's a lot to carry, Elias admitted. But I think I understand now. This bond isn't about power. It's about trust. About sharing the weight so it doesn't crush you alone. For the first time, Sarathis's expression softened. Not a smile, not approval, something quieter. You speak truth, human. Few see that so quickly. Elias held her gaze, feeling the unspoken respect in her words. For a moment the chamber seemed still, the hum of the ship distant, the stars silent beyond the walls. Then Sarathis straightened. The council calls tomorrow. They will wish to see what you have become. Speak carefully, but stand without fear. They must see that humanity is no child to be sheltered, but a people worthy to fight beside us. Elias rose slowly, his body aching but his spirit steady. Then I'll show them. The next day, Elias stood before the council once more. The great hall was a towering chamber, its walls carved with glowing runes that told the history of the Zarathi. The councilors sat upon high seats, their robes shimmering, their gazes sharp as blades. Elias walked forward alone, though he felt Sarathis's presence close, steadying him like a hidden hand. One councilor leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Human Elias Ward, you have endured the bond. Speak. What do you claim now as your place among us?" Elias drew a breath, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. He could feel the bond inside him, the hum of energy, the echo of Sarathis's strength. He thought of Earth, of his people, of the billions who looked up at the stars with hope. "I claim nothing for myself," he said firmly, his voice carrying across the hall. "I stand here not just as Elias Ward, but as a son of Earth. You asked if humanity could endure. You asked if we could stand in the fires of the galaxy. I stand as proof that we can. We do not seek to rule you. We do not seek to follow blindly. We seek to stand beside you as equals, not weak, not fragile, human." The hall fell silent. The councilors exchanged looks, their expressions unreadable. Some frowned, others seemed thoughtful. Finally, the eldest councilor spoke, her voice like stone. "Your words are bold, human. Perhaps too bold. Yet your survival speaks louder still. The bond is real. The fire burns in you." She looked to Sarathis. "You claimed him. He is yours. See that he does not falter." Sarathis bowed her head slightly, her golden eyes glinting. "He will not." Elias stood tall, the weight of countless eyes upon him. For the first time since he had left Earth, he felt something stronger than fear. He felt belonging. That night, as he lay in his chamber, Elias stared out at the endless stars. The bond pulsed faintly within him, steady as a heartbeat. The path ahead was dangerous, filled with battles and choices that would shape more than just his own life. But he no longer felt alone. Humanity had been noticed. Humanity had been tested, and humanity had endured. The war was coming, and Elias Ward knew he would be ready. The stars beyond the Zarathi flagship burned colder now. The peaceful silence that had once filled the viewing deck seemed distant, replaced by a tension that pressed against every corridor, every chamber, every breath Elias Ward took. The veiled dominion had moved. Reports came daily. Worlds stripped bare, colonies erased, fleets shattered. The machines spread like a tide across the outer systems, consuming all they touched. The council no longer debated if war was coming. War was here. For Elias, the days of ritual and council speeches were over. Now came drills that pushed his body beyond its limits, weapons training that left his arms aching, and strategy lessons that tested not only his mind, but his imagination. Commander Sarathis was always there, her golden eyes sharp, her voice steady, her presence like iron holding him upright. But Elias soon learned the bond was more than strength or shared visions. It was trust. Sarathis expected him to rise not as her student but as her equal, and in that expectation, Elias found the fire to push forward. The first real test came sooner than he expected. The alarm rang through the flagship one cycle after his speech before the council, a piercing tone that echoed through the ship's living walls. Warriors rushed through the halls, armor clattering, weapons humming with energy. Sarathis entered his chamber without pause. "The Veil have struck a Zarathi outpost at the edge of the Heron Belt. We respond." Elias was already pulling on the armor the Zarathi had prepared for him. It was heavier than human design, yet the bond let him bear its weight. The plates glowed faintly, alive with the same energy that pulsed inside him. His heart pounded not with fear but with something else, anticipation. This was no longer training. This was war. The flagship's hangar roared with sound as warriors gathered, lines of soldiers preparing for deployment. The air smelled of heated metal and burning energy. Massive warships floated outside, their hulls gleaming like dark suns. Sarathis led him to the center of the hangar where a squad awaited. Their gazes fell on Elias, some curious, some doubtful. None spoke, but their silence carried meaning. Why is a human here? Zarathus's voice cut through the air. He is bound. He fights at my side. Question him, and you question me. The squad lowered their heads in acknowledgement. Elias said nothing, but he felt the weight of their stares. This was his chance to prove himself, or to fall. The outpost hung in ruins when they arrived. Once a proud Zarathi station carved into an asteroid. Now it was a husk drifting in silence. The hull was torn open in places, fires burned in the void, and broken ships floated like corpses around it. The Veil were still there. Sleek metal constructs swarmed the wreckage. Their bodies black as night, their eyes burning with red light. They moved with cold precision, stripping what remained, dismantling everything for raw material. As the Zarathi warship closed in, the Veil turned in unison, a wave of machines shifting toward them. Elias felt the bond flare inside him. Zarathus's presence pressed against his mind, calm but firm. Stand ready. The fire is with you. The warship shuddered as smaller craft detached, carrying squads toward the station. Elias gripped his blade tightly, the weapon humming with energy. His stomach twisted, but he forced his breath steady. He had dreamed of the stars since childhood, but not like this. Not facing machines that saw him as nothing more than material to be consumed. The drop craft shook as it pierced through the debris field. The squad braced, silent, waiting for the hatch to open. Zarathus stood at the front, unshaken, her presence filling the space like a shield. Elias fixed his eyes on her. If she was steady, so would he be. The hatch blew open. The squad charged out into the ruined halls of the station. Red lights cut through the smoke. The machines were already there. Elias moved with them, his blade raised, his armor alive with energy. A Veil construct lunged, its body like a spider of steel. Elias swung hard, the blade tearing through its limbs. Sparks and black fluid sprayed as it collapsed. The sound of battle filled the air. Blades striking metal, energy beams burning through the walls. The roar of Zarathi warriors. The Veil moved in endless waves, precise, merciless. But the Zarathi met them head-on, their voices raised in war cries that shook the station. Elias fought as best he could. The machines were stronger, faster, their movements calculated. But he had something they did not. Instinct, creativity, the unpredictability of human thought. Where they charged in patterns, he broke them. Where they struck in unison, he slipped between them. He used the broken walls as cover, threw debris as distraction, even turned a fallen machine's limb into a makeshift weapon. More than once, Zarathus's blade cut down a machine that would have ended him. But each time, Elias rose again, refusing to falter. The squad pressed deeper into the station, cutting through waves of Veil until they reached the command chamber. There dozens of machines waited, their red eyes glowing in the darkness. Zarathus raised her blade high. "For the Zarathi!" she cried. The warriors roared in answer, and Elias, with his voice raw but steady, shouted with them. "For Earth!" The machines surged forward. The battle blurred into chaos. Elias fought with every ounce of strength, his arms heavy, his body bruised, but the bond kept him standing. He felt Zarathus near, her presence guiding him, her energy flowing through him. At one point, a Veil machine leapt onto him, its claws digging into his armor. Elias struggled, pinned against the wall. The machine's red eyes burned into his, cold and merciless. Instinct flared. He reached for the energy within him, the bond itself. His markings glowed faintly, and with a roar he pushed outward. A burst of light erupted from his chest, throwing the machine back in a shower of sparks. The squad froze for a heartbeat, staring. Even Zarathus turned her golden eyes on him, surprise flickering in her face. Elias gritted his teeth, gripping his blade tighter. "Don't just stand there," he gasped. "We're not done yet." The warriors roared again, renewed fire in their voices. They surged forward, cutting down the remaining machines. When the last Veil fell, silence returned to the chamber. The walls were scorched, the floor littered with broken metal. Elias stood in the center, his chest heaving, his blade dripping with black fluid. Zarathus stepped toward him, her eyes never leaving his. For a long moment she said nothing. Then with a nod she spoke. "You fight with fire." Elias let out a tired laugh, though his body trembled. Humans are full of surprises. The squad bowed their heads slightly, a gesture of respect. No one questioned his place now. The return to the flagship was quiet. The Zarathi honored the dead with silence, carrying their fallen back for ritual. Elias sat alone in the drop craft, his armor dented, his hands still shaking. He replayed the battle in his mind, the machines, the fire, the moment he had called upon the bond. It had nearly broken him, yet it had also saved him. He did not fully understand it, but he knew one thing clearly. Humanity was not weak, not fragile. They could fight, and they would fight. When they landed, Sarathis walked beside him through the hangar. Warriors bowed their heads as they passed, not to him alone, but to both of them, as bound partners. "You see now," Sarathis said quietly. "The Veil do not stop. They do not reason. They consume until nothing remains. This is the fire you are bound into." Elias nodded slowly. "Then we'll burn brighter." She glanced at him, her golden eyes glimmering. "Perhaps the council was right. Perhaps your people are not children of a small world. Perhaps you are something more." Elias looked out at the stars beyond the hangar, the endless night filled with threats and promise alike. His body ached, his spirit burned, but inside him the bond pulsed steady, strong. The war was far from over. It was only beginning, and humanity, for the first time in history, had taken its first true step into the fire. The war had been burning across the stars for weeks. Skirmishes had turned into open battles, and every day brought new reports of planets falling or fleets shattered. Humanity's entry into the conflict had surprised everyone: Zarathi, allies, and even enemies. At first, humans were seen as fragile, untested newcomers, but Elias Ward had changed that. His courage, his strange way of thinking, his refusal to give up, these had made the Zarathi begin to see Earth differently. But great victories often bring shadows, and not everyone in the galaxy wanted humanity to rise. Elias stood in the great council hall of the Zarathi flagship, listening as voices clashed like thunder. Dozens of towering Zarathi leaders sat in a circle, their glowing body markings flickering with emotion. At the center, Sarathis spoke with steady authority. "Humanity has proven itself," she said. "Their warrior Elias Ward has fought beside us, saved our soldiers, and offered strategies no Zarathi had thought of. They are worthy allies." Some of the council members nodded, but others hissed in disapproval. A tall counselor named Varric rose to his feet. His voice was sharp as a blade. "Worthy? They are weak. Their world is small, their fleets are few. If we allow them into our council, they will one day grow and challenge us. Do not be blinded by novelty." Elias felt dozens of alien eyes on him. He did not flinch, though his heart beat hard in his chest. He had been in many tense meetings before, but this one carried the weight of entire civilizations. Sarathis lifted her chin. "If fear guides us, we will lose. The Veiled Dominion is not impressed by numbers or traditions. They consume without hesitation. Humanity fights with creativity. They are the spark we need." Varric's markings glowed angrily. "Or they are the flame that will burn us later." The debate raged on for hours. At last, the council ended with no decision. Humanity's role remained uncertain, balanced on a blade's edge. That night, Elias walked the silent corridors of the flagship. He thought about Earth, his people still living under the blue skies, unaware of how close the machines were to discovering them. He thought about the battles he had fought, about the soldiers who had trusted him even when he was an outsider. And he thought about Sarathis, who had stood by him against her own people. But he also thought about Varric. There had been something in the counselor's eyes, a shadow of calculation, like someone planning more than speeches. The next day, Sarathis brought news. "We have been assigned to oversee a supply outpost near the border," she told him. "It is said to be important for the next campaign." Elias frowned. "Important? Or isolated?" She studied him. "You think this is more than a mission?" He nodded slowly. "I've seen this before. On Earth, when rivals want someone out of the way, they give them a task that looks important but leaves them exposed." Sarathis said nothing for a long moment, then finally sighed. "Perhaps you are right, but we cannot refuse without suspicion." The outpost floated above a barren moon far from the main fleet. It was little more than a cluster of towers and docking bays, its defenses thin compared to its supposed importance. Elias stepped off the transport and scanned the place. His instincts whispered danger. The soldiers stationed there looked nervous, their equipment poorly maintained. He could feel it. The outpost was a trap waiting to close. For 3 days, nothing happened. Elias spent the time checking systems, reinforcing weak defenses and asking questions that no one wanted to answer. Sarathis joined him, though her pride kept her from openly admitting his suspicions were correct. On the 4th day, alarms shattered the silence. "Veil ships incoming," A soldier shouted. The outpost shook as enemy fire struck the outer shields. Black metal shapes descended from the void, their sharp angles glinting with cold light. The Veil were here. Shields to maximum. Zarathis roared. All units to battle stations. Elias ran through the chaos, helping soldiers to their positions. He could see panic in their faces. The outpost was never meant to withstand a full assault. It was bait, and someone on the council had thrown them into it. The first wave of Veil machines landed on the moon's surface, swarming toward the towers. Their glowing eyes pierced the dust, their limbs cutting through Zarathi defenses like knives. Elias grabbed a damaged turret, sparks flying around his hands. He tore out wires and jammed them back in different patterns. The turret sputtered, then roared to life with triple the firepower. He grinned grimly. Let's see how you like human improvisation. The weapon tore into the advancing machines. Buying precious minutes, Zarathis fought like a storm, her staff flashing with energy, cutting down machine after machine. But there were too many. Elias, she shouted. We cannot hold this line. He scanned the battlefield and spotted the outpost's power core glowing at the base of the main tower. If the Veil captured it, the battle was over. This way, he yelled, dragging a squad with him. They sprinted through collapsing corridors, fire raining from above. When they reached the power core, Elias knelt beside the console. His fingers flew over the controls, rerouting circuits and overloading breakers. What are you doing? A Zarathi soldier demanded. Turning this whole place into a weapon, Elias replied. If they want it, they'll pay for it. Hours passed like minutes. The outpost burned, but it did not fall. Elias's traps and jury-rigged weapons tore apart wave after wave of machines. Still, the enemy pressed closer. At last, Zarathis stood beside him, her markings dim from exhaustion. If this continues, we die here. Elias wiped sweat from his brow. Better here fighting than back on Earth with the Veil at my family's door. Her eyes studied him. In that moment, she understood something about humans, something more than strength or cleverness. It was the will to fight for what mattered, even when all seemed lost. Then, through the smoke, came a new sight. Zarathi reinforcements dropping from the sky. Their ships blasted the Veil apart, their soldiers sweeping in to reclaim the field. The outpost was saved. Barely. Later, as the fires died and the wounded were carried away, Elias stood in the ruins. He knew the truth. They had been betrayed. When the council gathered again, Elias spoke. His voice was steady, though his body still ached from the battle. You sent us to die, he said. Not the Veil, your own council. Gasps filled the chamber. Zarathis stood beside him, silent but strong. Varric rose again, his face unreadable. You survived. Does that not prove your worth? Elias stepped forward. No, it proves your fear. You are afraid of what humanity might become, but you cannot kill us in the shadows. You cannot stop us with traps. We are not here to replace you. We are here to fight beside you. His voice rose, carrying through the hall. The Veil will not stop. They will come for Earth, for Zarath, for every living world. We either stand together as free beings or fall one by one into the dark. For a long time, silence hung heavy. Then, one by one, council members lowered their heads in agreement. Even those who doubted now saw the truth. Zarathis's markings glowed bright with pride. In that moment, Elias Ward was no longer a guest, no longer an outsider. He was a warrior of the Zarathi, and a voice for humanity. And though the shadows of betrayal lingered, a new light had been born. The light of unity, forged in fire and defiance. The stars burned cold and silent around the dying sun. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the last battle. Every ship in the Allied fleet stood ready, their hulls glowing under the light of the fading star. Zarathi warships formed the core, sharp and strong like blades. Human vessels, smaller, fewer, but fast and agile, wove among them like sparks of fire. Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Veilbreaker, staring out at the endless dark. His heart was steady now. The doubts of the council, the betrayal of Varric, the traps, they were behind him. Ahead was the real enemy, the Veil Dominion, a machine race that devoured without mercy. Beside him, Commander Zarathis stood tall. Her markings glowed a bright, steady blue, showing calm determination. Around them, the crew worked quickly, preparing weapons and shields. The whole fleet knew this battle would decide everything. If they won, Life would endure. If they lost, the galaxy would fall into silence and metal. Elias, Sarathis said, her voice firm. The scouts report movement. The Veil are coming, Elias nodded. Then let's show them what happens when you corner humanity. The enemy arrives. The void split open as the Veil fleet emerged. Ships of black steel filled the star system, stretching farther than the eye could see. They moved in perfect formation, their cold light shining like endless rows of eyes. At their center was the command ship, a massive construct that pulsed with a dark glow. The Veilbreaker shuddered as scanners picked up the size of the enemy fleet. The machines outnumbered the Allies 10-1, but Elias did not waver. Numbers don't win wars, he whispered. Will does. Sarathis turned to him, surprised by his calm tone. You humans, always so certain in the face of death, he smiled faintly. That's because death has never stopped us before. The battle begins. The first shots roared across the void. Zarathi warships unleashed beams of light, slicing into Veil ships. Human vessels darted forward, launching swarms of missiles and mines. Explosions tore through the darkness, lighting up the star system with deadly fire. The Veil answered with precision. Their weapons cut through shields. Their fighters swarmed like endless locusts. Allied ships fell one after another, burning into silence. On the bridge, orders rang out. Shields at 40%. Enemy boarding craft incoming. We're surrounded. Elias leaned over the map, studying the flow of battle. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. He tapped the map with his finger. They're too rigid. Machines don't adapt. If we strike here and here, we break their rhythm. Sarathis glanced at him. It is risky. Risk is our specialty, Elias said. The fleet obeyed his orders. Human ships darted into narrow gaps, luring Veil vessels into traps. Zarathi warships struck from the flanks, smashing their lines. For a moment, the battle turned. But the command ship at the center still loomed untouched. Its dark glow pulsed stronger, feeding energy into the swarm. The strike team Elias knew the truth. They could not win by destroying every enemy ship. The Veil were too many. The only way was to cripple the command ship. He turned to Sarathis. I need a strike team. We go in, plant charges, and end this from the inside. Her eyes widened. That ship is death itself. Then we'll teach death to fear us, Elias replied. Minutes later, a small team boarded a sleek assault craft. Zarathi warriors armed with glowing staffs, human marines with rifles, and at their head, Elias and Sarathis. The craft blasted through enemy fire, shields sparking as it dove toward the giant command ship. They pierced the hull with a thunderous crash, cutting their way inside. Inside the machine. The corridors of the Veil command ship were cold and endless, lit only by red energy veins that pulsed like a heartbeat. The walls seemed alive, shifting with mechanical whispers. Elias raised his weapon. Stay close. These things will come fast. He was right. From the shadows, machine guardians emerged. Tall, armored, their limbs sharp as blades. The battle inside the corridors was brutal. Zarathi's strength met machine precision. Human cunning filled the gaps, laying traps, tossing grenades, hacking panels. Elias fought with all his strength, his bond energy with Sarathis guiding him. Every time he faltered, she was there, her staff flashing to protect his back. Every time she stumbled, he covered her with fire. Step by step, they pushed deeper, until they reached the core chamber. The core. The chamber was vast, glowing with a black crystal heart that pulsed with dark light. Energy surged through it, feeding the entire fleet. This is it, Elias said. We bring this down, we end the battle. The team placed charges around the chamber. But as the last one was armed, the ground shook. From the shadows, a massive machine guardian emerged, twice the size of any they had fought before, its eyes blazing red. It struck with deadly force, scattering the warriors. Elias rolled aside as its blade arm sliced through the floor where he had stood. Sarathis shouted, leaping at the machine, but it hurled her aside. Elias stood firm. His body ached, his strength fading, but he refused to retreat. He remembered Earth, his family, the skies of home. He remembered every soldier who had trusted him. He remembered the words he had spoken. We either stand together or fall into the dark. With a roar, he charged. The sacrifice, the battle with the Guardian, was desperate. Elias used every trick he knew, slamming grenades into its joints, firing into its glowing eyes, dodging its deadly strikes. At last he saw the chance, a glowing crack in its chest, but his weapon was empty. He had nothing left except one thing, the bond energy. The Zarathi ritual that had marked him weeks ago still lived within him, faint but burning. He remembered Sarathas's words. The bond is life, but it can also be fire. Elias pressed his hands to the crack in the Guardian's chest and let the bond energy flow. His body screamed with pain as the alien power surged through him, tearing at his strength. Light exploded from his hands, flooding into the machine. The Guardian shrieked, its body splitting apart in a storm of fire. The energy raced into the core, overloading it. The black crystal pulsed wildly, then cracked. The entire chamber shook. "Elias," Sarathas shouted, pulling him back. "You'll die!" He stumbled, barely able to stand. His skin glowed faintly with the energy burning inside him, but he smiled through the pain. "If death takes me, let it be with victory," he whispered. The explosion. The strike team raced back to the assault craft as the charges detonated. The command ship tore itself apart, black fire ripping through its veins. Outside, the Veil fleet faltered, their ships collapsing as the power link was severed. The Allied fleet roared forward, smashing the remaining enemy vessels. The sky above the dying star blazed with victory. On the assault craft, Elias collapsed into Sarathas's arms. His body was weak, his breath shallow, but he was alive. Somehow, against all odds, he had survived. Sarathas held him close, her markings glowing softly. "You are more than a warrior, Elias Ward. You are a flame the machines could not extinguish." He gave a faint smile. "Or maybe I'm just too stubborn to quit." Aftermath, the war was not over, but the tide had turned. With the command ship destroyed, the Veil retreated for the first time in memory. The galaxy had hope again. Back on the flagship, the Council gathered once more. This time, there was no argument. Humanity had proven itself beyond doubt. Elias Ward stood before them, weary but unbroken as they bowed in respect. Varak, the one who had once doubted, lowered his head as well. "The humans are truly our equals." Sarathas stood beside Elias, her voice steady. "Not equals, partners, together stronger than apart." And so, humanity took its place among the stars, not as weak outsiders, but as warriors who had shown that even the smallest world could rise against the dark. The final smile that night. As the fleet sailed away from the dying star, Elias stood in his quarters. His body still ached, but his spirit was alive. The galaxy was vast, the future uncertain, but humanity had carved its place. The door slid open. Sarathas stepped inside, her robe trailing behind her. She cast it aside, her markings glowing bright. She smiled at Elias, the same smile she had given him on the first night. "You're mine tonight," she said softly. But this time Elias understood. It was not a claim of power or ritual. It was recognition, respect, and trust. And as the stars stretched before them, Elias knew one thing with certainty. Humanity would never again be underestimated.